Welcome, welcome. It's Saturday night. No, it's really Monday night actually. It's Monday night from Dallas, Texas. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. All right, so we've been had this big debate lately about that's been posted online, and many of you might have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I want to tell you to go read it because it's just adorable. It was I don't know if it's real or if it's make believe, but we're going to pretend it's real. There was a sewing advice from a Singer manual in 1949. So that in itself is pretty silly, but there's been an updated version, and if you just go to 1949, Google like 1949 Singer sewing machine manual, and what you want to do is look for the updated version. They have the old version and the updated version. So basically the concept says that the Singer manual, the sewing machine manual, says you should always make sure the dishes are clean and make sure the beds are made before you sew and make sure you have a beautiful dress on and make sure you chalk your fingers. And anyway, it goes through all this stuff. In the modern day, each one, it goes through and says what today's version would be. Like chalk your fingers is what's chalk? And for don't approach sewing with a lackadaisical attitude. It says do your chores with a lackadaisical attitude so you have time to sew. And in the very beginning it says make sure you approach sewing with a clean fresh mind, and the modern day interpretation is just wake up. So I'm going to tell you it's a very cute little laugh. It will really be appreciated among sewers today since we are now all levels of education. We are in corporate, we are in, come on, we are not sewing because that's all we can do in life. Is that fair? So we as sewers, more than anyone, will really appreciate the modern day interpretation of the 1949 Singer Sewing Manual. I know you all will get a little chuckle out of it, so I thought we would give you a heads up on it. All right, so welcome again, welcome, welcome. And tonight we're going to do the 650, which is the pattern of the month, 650 wrap top for November. It is extremely current, extremely trendy. Wrap dresses. Diane von Furstenberg has made the comeback of the, decade, and these dresses are, exactly why they were popular in the 70s, because they're very flattering. They look good on many different types of figures, and you can tweak and get them to be exactly what you want them to be. Obviously, when we're buying them, we have limitations, but boy, when we make them, the sky's the limit. We are going to make one tonight. I want to go over some fitting principles because they're so simple to fit. I don't want y'all struggling with this fit. So I made up a muslin and I'm going to drape it on me. On my mannequin is what I'm going to do. You can drape this on yourself. You don't need a mannequin. You really truly can drape it on yourself. And like I said, I'll walk through, and as we're fitting it, I want you guys to ask questions just as if we were in a class. Okay? All right. Before we do that, traditionally we do our questions and answers, and we want to make sure that we leave time for that. And so fire away. If you guys have any questions that you want addressed, we're happy to do that. Will you explain the collar on Swing Jacket 1855? I'm having a problem with the pleats on the collar. Don't make it a problem. Just pleat the collar in to fit the band. Some of the feedback we've gotten is that the little marks, as we take a collar piece and we grade it, it's hard to mark which pleats go to which size and yada yada, because we stack the pattern pieces. So just put the ends together where they're supposed to be, put center back together, and then just make the collar fit into the band. Whatever is going to fit is the size the pleat should be. So just keep it that simple. All right, does that help? I hope that's not too simplistic. What are you wearing? Good question. I am wearing, is this too cute? It's really cute. I love it. I love it. It's the wrap top. It's pattern 650. We'll get into it. And I have to apologize because you guys, I get a fair amount of emails. Is that, honest? So I got an email yesterday. Now I'd already done the webcast yesterday. I'd already finished. I try to work these out a while in advance so that I'm not doing stuff at the last minute, because you just I can't really do my best if I'm doing things at 5 till 8. Okay. So I try to do them ahead of time, but I got an email yesterday or day before. I can't remember which one it was. And they sent this picture, and I know you're not going to be able to see this picture, but this picture is what I have on. And the question was, will you show us how to make this? Will you show us how to make this out of the wrap top? And my response was, you can't make that. I feel really bad. You can't make that out of the wrap top. It's more a cowl neck translation. And so as I said that back, I got to thinking about it, and I kind of felt bad, and I decided, you know what, I was going to do it. And I would show you. It could be very simple, and it could be better than a cowl, actually, and so I made it. And I like it better than a cowl. So to you who sent the email, I apologize. I always appreciate you guys sending things. Sometimes I'm just a little overwhelmed, and the webcast was done. So I thought, I don't have anything to wear yet, and I'll make it for myself. So here you have it, and I'll explain how to do it. It's extremely simple, and it's a lot of fun. Doesn't take a lot of time. And I love it. It's probably my favorite thing in all of these. So again, I apologize. What kind of fringe is on your top? It looks great. So this fabric we've got it online, and wait, and I'll answer that, okay? Because I've got the fringe cut. I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you all the parts, okay? I bought a jacket, and every time I put it on, the lining at the sleeves pulls to the outside. The lining at the sleeves pulls to the outside. What did they do wrong? What is the proper way to line a jacket? The lining at the sleeves, like the hem pulls to the outside, maybe the lining comes out of the cuffs at the bottom, pulls to the outside. Maybe that's what you're saying. So the lining is too long for the sleeve. I'm gonna suggest that. If that's the case, if I'm guessing right, and go ahead if I'm not, and amend that question. The sleeve lining is supposed to hem the sleeve. So we have a formula in our patterns. It's for the lining, it's the sleeve minus 2 hems plus a seam allowance. So for instance, if you take this as the sleeve, and you turn up the hem, and the hem on a sleeve I do usually at like 1.25 inches. So you can't do it just minus 1 hem, because the lining would come down here. So it's 2 hems, there's the second hem, plus a seam allowance, and that way they'll sew to one another, and the lining will support the hem. So if the lining is hanging out or pulling to the outside, like you said, it's because the lining itself is too long, and so it's not holding, it's coming out the bottom. So you could just go inside and take a little tuck all the way around the lining. I wouldn't even undo anything. Just take a little tuck, figure out about how much it is. It's probably not very much, and just hem it up all the way around on the inside of the sleeve. And you can access that through, if you pull the sleeve to the outside, there'll be on usually the left sleeve on the lining, there'll be a little top stitch section, a top stitch section. If you take it undone, you'll be able to access the whole jacket inside. It's how they turn the jacket, is through the lining sleeve on the left sleeve. All right. When you make a jacket pattern as a vest, removing sleeves, do you change the armhole to make it smaller? Not necessarily. I don't many times. Like I did the trench coat, I didn't change that armhole, simply because there's no reason for this armhole to be smaller, and you're going to wear something under it. So if you leave it like it is, it allows for much more flexibility in whatever you're going to wear underneath it. And why make it smaller? There's no advantage to making it smaller. There's no sleeve, there's no movement, there's none of that. If you're using a true jacket and it has a shoulder pad, make sure you re-angle the shoulder. That will make it smaller. But as far as the depth of the armhole, how far down it goes, I would leave it. I wouldn't change it. But again, your call. Just think about what you're going to wear under it. And some of our things today are kind of bat-winged a little bit, and that allows us to have a lower armhole. So it allows us a little more flexibility of what we're going to wear under the vest. Have lightweight fused linen. Can I use it for a swing jacket or need to fuse? I thought you said it was fused. Have lightweight fused linen. Can I use it as a swing jacket? Yes is the answer to the swing jacket. That's what I used, was a linen. Or do I need to fuse? I guess I'm a little confused because I thought it was already fused, but I personally would fuse linen. Now the negative of fusing linen is the beauty of linen is that it breathes, and it's, you know, that's the very nature of why most people like linen. So if you fuse it with any fusible today is not a natural fiber. There's no such thing as natural fusibles. You know, they just don't exist. So when you go to fuse it, you're going to fuse it with generally a polyester, and that's going to diminish the natural thing that the linen does, which is breathe. So it will stop breathability of that linen. For me, as I travel, I just wouldn't make a linen garment that I didn't fuse, because it's so high maintenance. I can't wear it. I can't use it. It doesn't do me any good. So I love linen, but I fuse it 100% of the time. But it's your decision based on how hot you are, where you live, you know, kind of all those things. I hope that helps. Okay, good. Good. Any other questions? How are we doing? You have to stay tuned to figure out how to do it. All right, any other questions coming in? Okay. So let's go ahead and start draping then. That's what I want to do tonight. I'm going to bring my attention to this lady right here. I'm Peggy 2, she's Peggy 1. What I did is I used, this is pattern number 650 we're going to start with, alright? And again, I really need you to ask questions as we go, because my goal in doing this is to teach you how to do this. I already know how to do it. So my goal is to really get you all more and more comfortable with fit. I know that the more I drape and the more you watch me drape, the more comfortable you become. So that's our goal here. Alright, so what I did is I made up a size that was too big for me. I knew it was too big, and I made up a cup size that was larger than what I typically use. Smaller than I typically use, so that I would run into some issues. Alright? The 650 is a woven body. So what that means is it was meant to be made with woven. So what that means is it's a blouse sleeve and a blouse armhole. Now I made it up in a knit body, and the reason I did that is because the wrap top, even though it's a blouse and even though it's a woven fabric and it has a blouse armhole, it's kind of in a category all of its own. Because of the wrap neck and because it ties, it can't be too large, because if it's too big around circumference wise, then when you go to tie the tie on the side, the underneath tie, it has an under tie and then an over tie. The under tie pulls the back so far to the front that it distorts the neckline and doesn't lay right. So the circumference at the waist is extremely important, and you can't have a lot of ease in order for the neckline to lay straight. Alright, so pattern number 650, what I did to make the muslin is I used some of that knit muslin we have. It's $5 a yard. I only had to buy a yard. I didn't need a sleeve because I already have my sleeve and my armhole and I know what I'm doing there. But I did make up just the 4 pieces, which were the front, the side front, the side back, and the back. So I'll kind of show you all this. And I'm going to pull this in just a little bit here. Okay. Alright, so there's the back, and there's the front. I didn't mark anything. The only thing I marked, and I actually stitched it, as you may or may not be able to see, is center front. And I just stitched it with black thread, and the reason being is because when you go to try this on, center fronts have to be brought together. So I marked center front, I stitched it. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is, now if you have any questions about picking out your size, what size to pick out, it says on the back of the pattern how to pick out that, but if you have any questions, let me know. So I'm going to reach up and make sure that these center fronts come together. Important to do that. You can't fit the garment if you don't have the center fronts brought together. Okay, then I'm just going to put a pin here just to kind of hold this in place as if it were tied. Okay, then we're going to do our L, our C, and our D. Our L, first of all, is length. And the lengths that we're dealing with on this particular pattern are base of the neck to bust, bust to waist. So the very first one, now remember, when you are draping, don't ever go to the problems. The problems will solve themselves if you just go through this order. And the purpose of going through this order is to teach you how to drape and what you don't know the problem is. So many of you say, oh look, the armhole's gapping, look, look, look. Well, don't worry about that armhole gap. If you go L, C, and D, the armhole gap will fix itself because it's one of those three. So it's really important to go in this order. I only go in this order to teach you to go in this order. Okay, so L, C, and D. In the patterns we have a choice of a bra cup. Does that coordinate with the bra we wear? Yes. I am between a B and C cup. Would I start with a C cup pattern? Yes. Always go to the larger. This is not like a bra where blouse cup sizing and bra cup sizing, although they coordinate by the numbers or the letters, they are not done the same way. In a bra, I measure my band, I measure my full bust, and the difference between yields me a cup size. In a blouse, I measure a length here and a length here, and the difference yields me a cup size. So I'm never going to go to a big cup and end up with pointy darts. It's just not going to happen. So I have get many emails that say, I'm an A cup, what should I wear? You should always do B. If you're less than B, do a B. If you're not sure, you're always better off to go to the larger cup size, and I'll show you the side effects of going to too small of a cup size. For the first time making the wrap top, should it be made in a woven? For the first time, yes, but I'm still using a knit muslin. Did you guys understand why I was doing that? Simply because I don't need to make it out of a woven, because I can use the same muslin for woven and knit. The only thing, and I'll show you, the only thing I'm going to do different is change the armhole and the sleeve. And I did that on a couple samples here. And in fact, the one I have on. Okay? So I would make it out of a knit body, because even if it's a woven, it has to fit the same circumference-wise. No difference between a knit and a woven. If you make a wrap top in a knit and it has negative ease, it won't wrap. So there's no such thing as going to a knit negative ease in a wrap top. That's why this pattern is a little bit specific and why I wanted to make it the POM. This wrap top is going to become a dress, you know, the wrap dress here in a minute, but I want to make sure you understand the fitting. Okay, so I've wrapped it, lapped it. We're back to length. The length in a silhouette patterns never has to be changed. Okay, I know where your bust is. I've got a 2-inch error factor, 3-inch error factor. Mark my word, you will never have to change the length from the shoulder to the bust in a princess seam in a silhouette pattern. Okay, period. I've got it down. So nobody worry about where the bust hits. I've got where the bust hits. I figured that out after 30 years. All right, now if you have any questions regarding that, let me know, because what I want to do is dispel all these terrible rumors that are out there that you guys are convinced are true regarding the bust and a princess seam. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it to the back, and I'm going to deal with, is the waist in the right place? Now, a lot of times with this princess seam, because it's a little bit thicker in the waist than what you are, it allows you to actually bring it in at the waist and make the waist where you want it to be. Now, I did this with the pattern purposely so that you could actually not worry about measuring where the waist was, and once you get the body together, just pull it in where your waist is. So this is a really easy thing to do on your body. Just simply reach back and put 2 pins where the waist is and where you want that and how much you want it in by. And again, it can't be too loose, because if it's too loose, when I go to tie the front, the back will be pulled to the front and the side seams are all the way to the front of the body. We don't want any of that. So this is where I'm going to pin the back. And I don't need a lot of pins. I'm just going to put 2. How much I want the waist in and where I want the waist in. And that's going to secure my waist exactly where I want it. Where does the shoulder seam get noticed? Would that be shown in L, C, or D? That's going to be D. Good question, though. That's fair. So let's not worry about the shoulder seam right now. We're only going to worry about L. All right, so the 2 L's are the front, which you're not going to have a problem with, and the back waist, which I just showed you how you can get that waist to fit you. Alright, you shouldn't see a sway back because I'm actually creating where the waist is. If you have a sway back, then you can take a horizontal dart across the back. It'll taper to nothing at the sides, and you'll see it. You'll see some angular wrinkles. You'll take a pinch here. Just don't take it at the waist, take it a little bit above the waist, taper to nothing over here, and it's a horizontal dart. Okay? How do you know these back adjustments if you don't have a dress form? I just said it. If you're doing this by yourself and you have it on your body, reach back, grab where your waist is, and put 2 pins back there where your waist is. Just put 1 pin on each side. Take the pin in this hand and put it over here, and then pinch this in and put it in this side. Alright, so you can easily do this by yourself. You do not need a mannequin. The only reason I'm doing a mannequin is so I can talk to you while I'm doing it on the mannequin, okay? Because it'd be really hard for me to do it on myself while you all are watching. Alright, are we okay with that? That's length. Check length off your list. Let's go on to circumference. I'm hoping that you choose the right size. Finished garment measurements, you all know how to do this. I want to get as close in the ballpark as possible. I can go and use more than one size. We have all these sizes in the pattern. The reason we do that is so that you can do 1 bust size and 1 waist size and 1 hip size. So I can draw the line and go from 3 to 4 to outside of 4. Or I can go from whatever the number is, 6 to 5, whatever. If I measure the measurements I want and compare them to the back of the envelope, I can plot out exactly where I need to go. Knowing that the bust doesn't or shouldn't have a lot of ease, the waist shouldn't have a lot of ease, and the hips, you can have more in the hips if you want, but the top itself shouldn't have a lot of ease, or else it won't be correct. So once I've done circumference and I've chosen what I think to be the best size, I can have extra ease at the bust, but I need to take it all pretty much away at the waist. So I've got the backs done. I'm going to then go to the side seams, and I've got all these seams. I'm going to just pin out, and if you're standing in the mirror, you can just literally put the pins on the side of you and in the front. Use your princess seams to take out that additional circumference. And I want it to be within like 1 inch of your waist. If not, it's going to be too roomy. Now once I get the circumference like I want it, and you can see I'm just putting pins here all the way around, they're just little pins there, I can go up and go down and just taper right back to where I want it to be. Okay? With this pattern, what ease are we looking for? With the bust, I would say you probably want about 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches. Actually, the bust doesn't really matter. It's your choice. But with the waist, you really don't want more than 1 inch, 2 inches all the way around. I think the one I have on is knit, and I probably have 2 inches. But that's because it's knit, I can get away with a little bit more. If it's woven, I would stay at 1 inch, between 1 inch and 2 inches. Keep in mind, you guys, this is a progression, and so once you make one, you want to critique what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and you'll get better and better and better, and you'll be able to answer those questions, except they'll be your answers, not my answers. How do you transfer that length adjustment to the pattern? I didn't make any length adjustments. But as far as these adjustments, you don't need to transfer it to the pattern. You could just sew this, reduce it down to seam allowance, and use this as your pattern. But I guess to answer your question, let me answer your question. How would I transfer it to a pattern? I would measure it from the bottom, where this pin is, how far in it is, and then make the mark both on the side, the front and the side front. And then I would do the same thing with each of them. You could just measure up from the bottom. I get a muslin, then I use my muslin as my pattern. It's your choice, but that's a much easier process than transferring everything back, and you're likely to not transfer everything back correctly. Is that fair? And I've seen that through many workshops I've been in. We've draped a muslin, and then the ladies, I give you instructions, but I allow you to do whatever you feel like you want to. So a lot of ladies will make the changes back to their tissue, and then they make up their garment and it's wrong. And when we go to figure out what's wrong, they made mistakes in transferring their changes back to the tissue. It's just wrong. So I would suggest you, that's why you're making a muslin. It can be your pattern. Okay? Okay. So I've got length done, check off. I've got circumference done, check off. Now I've got depth. My depth should be 2 issues. That's it. Well, maybe 3. Maybe 4, but okay. We're going to start at the top and we're going to work our way down. So the first thing I'm going to look for is the shoulder seam. The shoulder seam is an angle, so in fact the shoulder seam is a dart. Hear that? The shoulder seam is a dart. The shoulder seam is a dart, that's why it's a depth issue. Notice I've got a little bit of rippling around here, and when I go and pin the shoulder seam up, all that rippling comes away. So I'm only going to change the edge of the shoulder. I'm going to taper to nothing at the neckline. Okay, and you notice how clean that is. Now there's a few other issues, but it's not the shoulder seam's fault. We have a shoulder seam here and we have a bust dart here. Between the two of them, it's their job to make that armhole nice and clean. Alright, and they can do that. If you decide that you want the shoulder seam to be narrower, then I would take it out of this center front and I would make a dart right here. Okay, so that dart's going to come around and it's going to come down vertical. It'll be the same in the front and back, and it will taper to nothing right along the seam line. I wouldn't use the side seam, the side front, I'm sorry, and the reason being is because the side front is such a narrow strip anyway that if I start taking width off of it, it's just going to be way out of proportion to the front. So you notice I started here, I have a dart that tapers to nothing at the bust line, and it brings that armhole in, it makes the shoulder seam narrower, and then I do that to the back as well, onto the back. My armhole didn't change, I didn't have to worry about changing anything on the armhole, and I'm good to go. Okay, so I'm going to start there. Start at the shoulder seam. I can do this way and then I can do this way. Alright, there's 2 other things I want you to worry about. This is called the no gap wrap. Now I've fitted this top on many women and I have not had many problems. Once in a while I run across where this front gaps. It's not often. If it does, on your muslin, you're going to make a little dart right here. Now the place where the dart is where the neckline hollow changes into the bust. It goes concave to convex. So sometimes the length on the neckline is too long and you'll see a little bitty dart. It's horizontal and it's going to come right here, right where the neckline stops and the bust goes out, and it's going to come to nothing right at the princess seam. Now we know there's different kinds of darts, and these darts, this dart is not going to be in the final garment. This dart is only going to be in your pattern, and what it's going to do is make sure that neckline is snugged right up against your body so it can't gap even if it wanted to. Now I'm telling you that I did this in the pattern. We already did it on our fit models. We already did it. Most of you are not going to need it, but if you find that when you bend you just feel like there's a little bit, it pulls away from your body a little bit too much, snug it up with this little dart, because when you bend it should stay right against your neck because there's nothing to, it's the right length, so there's nothing to allow it to gap. You have to have too much length in order for it to gap, and if there's not too much length it can't gap. Okay? How do you make the shoulder seam wider but reduce How do you make the shoulder seam wider but reduce the armhole depth? Okay, 2 different questions. Let's just take one at a time. How do you make the shoulder seam wider? You do the opposite of this. If I'm taking in here to make it narrower, you add there to make it wider. The armhole depth we'll get to here in a little bit. Hold on to that question. Alright? Okay, there's one last thing I want to show you that's a wonderful little trick, and it is right in here. And you can do this on a princess seam. You can do this on a princess seam top, whether it's knit, woven, and a princess seam jacket. It's a great little trick. And that is, if there's any gapping in here and I've got a little bit of angular lines, I'm just going to clean them up and I'm going to take a dart. Now the reason this happens is because the pattern that I used, the dart was not enough. So for instance, I used a B cup on here and I'm not a B cup. So because a B cup was moved here when I made the pattern, I was moved from here to here, there's not enough length being taken out of the side. And so it still will look as if there's a dart that can be pinched right here where the original dart was, because there can be. You can see now how much cleaner that lays, and then I'm going to dart the back also. You will see some angular pulls that go from the side seam to the princess seam. And when I fix that dart, all those angular pulls will go away. Alright, so if I have a B cup and I have those angular pulls, then the next time I should do a C cup. If I did a C cup and I have those angular pulls, the next time I should be using a larger cup size, a D cup. Alright, so this is a great little trick. Again, it's not in the final garment, it's a horizontal, it's like the dart is widest at the side seam, tapers to nothing at the princess seam in the front, nothing at the princess seam at the back. It's beautiful. And at that point, that armhole will just be gorgeous, and the whole top will just fit exactly. That's all there is to fit. Length, circumference, depth. So now what I want to know is if there are any other issues that you have that we haven't covered, so that in this top we can get it to really fit beautifully for you. Does that adjustment correct for a hollow chest? It does. It sure does. But again, you guys, I hate to have those names because that says there's something wrong with you. There's not anything wrong with you. There's always what's wrong with the pattern. So we're fixing the pattern to match you. You're perfect. Do you sew where all the pins are? Yes. Yes, you do. What you do with this now is you go back and sew all those areas where the pins are. You have to make sure the pattern lays flat. The only time the pattern can take dimension is when you're sewing it on the sewing machine. It has to lay flat, and every pin we've made here will have it lay flat. To where we've taken in the circumference, just take your seam allowance and add it to that pin so that I still have a 3/8 all the way down, and then cut off any extra so that when it lays flat, the shape of me will be flat onto the table. Okay, so take the pins, sew where the pins are, then I would try it back on. Reduce everything down to a 3/8, then take it off. Okay? Then do you place the muslin onto the fashion fabric to use as a pattern? Absolutely. Why did I mark center front? I did it originally to get the center fronts together, but the grain is always parallel to center front. So now I can use center front as a grain line also. So it's important to have that marking on the pattern. Here's center front, and the pattern overlaps to the princess seam. But if it's the right size, the center fronts will come together and it'll automatically overlap to the princess seam. You can't mess that up. You know, the pattern's already done that way. Would I be wise to sew the muslin seams with long basting stitch so after all my fitting is done it will easily come apart to use as my pattern? Yes, you are very wise. I basted this whole thing together because I'm going to be taking it apart. So I certainly want it to come apart fairly quickly. And it won't fall apart, you guys. What about forward shoulder? Alright, forward shoulder simply means that, you know, keep in mind that there's the only, let me say this briefly, the seam line itself, the shoulder seam, has no anatomical alignment to the body. And you've seen that because there's some garments that we don't even have shoulder seams. We don't have to have a shoulder seam. But what the shoulder seam does is just as if I take these undone, and you can see the extra that's around that armhole, it takes away, you know, you want it to match the slope of the body. If the shoulder seam is too far forward, it won't take up the slack in the back. If the shoulder seam is too far back, it won't take the slack up in the front. So I want the shoulder seam to kind of be in the top so that it has an equal impact front to back. If it's not, then it won't have that impact. So from there is no anatomical alignment to the body. If I just want it where I want it just because I want it there, I can always add fabric to the back and pull it forward and take away from the front and add it to the back. I can move it wherever I want it to go. It's not going to change the angle. The angle is the angle whether I make it the front and the back together, as long as it's the right angle. Is this the same bodice in Diane's wrap dress? Yes and no. Diane's wrap dress was a knit. It's a knit body. So it's going to be smaller than what the woven is, but it's the same basic angles, yes. For greater than a D cup, what would be the best way to adjust the pattern? This right here, this is why I'm showing you this. If you're larger than a D cup, you're going to take this two-ended dart right there, and that's not going to be in your final pattern, but that's your best little weapon. I don't care if you're triple F. This is going to be your best weapon. What you'll see is you'll see diagonal wrinkles coming from the bust. You're going to take this dart and they're all going to go away. And how big you know to make that is until all the wrinkles go away. And then bam, you take that amount out of the side seam, taper it to nothing at the front, taper it to nothing at the back. How do you handle square shoulders? Do you take a dart from the neckline? No. Square shoulders, that's the shoulder. Why would you go to the neckline? I mean, I want you all to ask me these questions, but I'd love to know why you think that. I mean, a square shoulders, it just means that your shoulders are a different angle than the pattern. So I'm going to add to this outside rather than take it down. It's the opposite of a sloped shoulder. So don't impact. The only reason it impacts the neckline is because the shoulder has to sit on the body where the shoulder is, and then because it's the wrong angle, it throws the neckline forward, but the neckline is not what's wrong. So you don't want to fix what's not wrong, you want to fix what's wrong, which is the angle. Does that make sense? I hope. You know, it's funny when I don't have a classroom of people, I can't tell if you like went to get a glass of wine, or if I lost you 20 minutes ago, I can't tell. How can I get rid of the gap on the armhole that is the gap? How can I get rid of the gap on the armhole that is finished as a dart? There's no gap at the armhole that's finished as a dart. When the armhole gaps, there's two things that can be wrong. Angle of the shoulder can be wrong, and I can pull it up, or the dart is not large enough. Neither one is in the armhole. So I'm not sure what that question means. I can't say this enough because I have said it probably like for 40 years, and sometimes when I do it actually in a live seminar, people say, oh, that's what you meant. What I mean is there's no dart in the armhole. There shouldn't be a dart in the armhole. The armhole didn't do anything wrong. Either the shoulder seam is wrong or this dart that was moved here was wrong, but you fix it here. That's why I did this tonight on the princess seam. If my garment pulls to the back, do I need the shoulder seam further forward? No, the shoulder seams do not make a garment pull back. Garment pulls back because the back length is not long enough. Think of that. Think of this for a minute. The back is convex. The back gets longer as I stretch my arms forward. If there's not enough length or width for that back, it will pull the front to the back. Don't change it automatically, but I'm going to tell you in this pattern, this is a beautiful back. I rarely have to do any changes on the back of this garment. So when I go to workshops, it's why I tell people I'm not going to drape other patterns because I got to make too many changes to get them to fit. I've got depth built into this back. Through the princess seam, the darts are all built in, so there could be many things you're going to have a problem with that you wouldn't have a problem with this pattern. If you make this pattern up and you feel like it's pulling to the back, you're going to slash horizontally through the shoulder blades, and you're going to lift up the back here and add right in through here, and that will give the back the length you need. But don't just do that automatically. Please don't, because you're going to waste a lot of time doing that when I've rarely done that on this pattern. Okay? Why didn't you do the fit with a woven? Hit rewind. Okay. The reason I didn't do the fit with a woven was because in this particular pattern, the woven and the knit have to fit the same or very similar. I can't have a negative ease with knit because the wrap won't wrap. It can be a knit, don't get me wrong, but I can't use negative ease like I do in a t-shirt because when I go to wrap it, everything will pull apart. So a knit and a woven are almost synonymous when I do the top wrap dress. Okay? I need a petite size. When I shorten the princess, the pattern becomes distorted. How should I alter the pattern? Okay, what you need to hear is, let me say it again, and then I'm going to stop the fitting because I've got so many things I want to show you, and I've said all of this, so you can just hit rewind and kind of hear this again. On a silhouette pattern, no one will need to shorten between the neck and the bust. Now I do this in classes all the time. I pick somebody out of the audience who's 5'2", and then I pick somebody who's 6'2", and you measure them from the base of the neck to the point of the bust. They're all 12 inches, 12 and a half. They're all the same, really close to be the same. We don't, for whatever reason, gain height between our shoulder and our bust. So there is no reason to change the pattern. And I have a 2-inch error factor. I keep saying 2, a 3-inch error factor when I deal with a princess seam. Where you, if you are petite, where you will need to shorten is between the bust and the waist. And then you just take a pleat all the way around, the same amount all the way around, and bring the waist up. That's it. Okay? Okay. Are we good on that? Yay! I expect some beautiful fitted wrap tops that don't gap. I expect them, okay? That's a lot to ask. Okay, I'm going to push her to the side because what I want to do is I want to give you some great ideas once you have that wrap top done, because there's so many things out there today being done with this wrap top. It just needs to fit correctly. That's why I wanted to spend this time. Okay, the very simplest thing I'm going to do first is, again, this pattern has 4, 5, 6 pieces. You know, I mean, in theory, it has the front, the side front, it has the back, the side back, it has a collar, it has a front facing, but I'm not counting that. It has a collar, and then it has a sleeve. So we're going to pick 5 of those pieces. We're going to leave out some pieces. We're going to make this really, really easy. This is a new fabric I put up, and I'll tell you in a minute why I put it up. So this is the wrap top. And now this is done in a knit, but I didn't make it any smaller because of the knit. What I want you to see is that there's the wrap right there. Okay? But what I did is I left off the collar and I redrew the neckline, and I'm going to show you how I did that because I love this. And you can see when it's worn open, it's just adorable. Very trendy, very stylish right now. I lengthened it about 6 inches so that I could, you know, so it came below my rear end. And then I made a little sweater set underneath. I made a sleeveless little sweater set to go with. And then what I did is, let me show you the front neck edge. This is the pattern. Now there's 2 positions on a French curve. You're going to go from the neckline to right here. I can either do the French curve concave or convex. This is convex. And when I do that, what that means is the neckline actually covers more in through this area. If I actually closed it up, you can see how much of the neckline is actually covered. If I do it concave, which I don't typically do simply because I prefer more of my neck to be covered, instead of doing it like this, I'm still going to go from the neck to, and let me just give you numbers just to kind of help you out. I would go from 20 at the curve of the neck, which is right here, to 11, which is center front. So you see when I do that, it makes a nice gradual curve. If I did it like this, which I'm completely allowed to do, all I want you to see is how much more is taken away out of the front and how much more it opens up the front neck. Not wrong, it's just all styling and what you decide to do. I actually like it concave rather than convex, so that's why I did it that way. Alright, so I changed the neckline. That means I didn't need a collar, no facings. All I did was serge the edge, tuck it under, and top stitch. But I did use a knit sleeve. So I took out my sweater set, which is your favorite armhole, you guys. And by the way, this week, What's Up Your Sleeve, the DVD, is on sale for $24.99. Don't take this wrong, but please buy that DVD. I get so many, I'm still getting so many sleeves and armhole questions. I get that you have the questions, but it won't take you that long to watch this thing, and I really think a lot of light bulbs will go on. Alright, so on the top is my knit armhole, and on the bottom is my 650, which is my wrap top. So I'm going to line them up at the shoulder seam, and I think you can see, and I line them up at the side seam. Can they see that? Okay. So you can see that what I should do is just extend up the side seam and then draw on my knit armhole. And then I just use my knit sleeve, and that's what I did. And it was that simple to make this great little flowy cardigan. Very cute. Very easy to do. Alright, so with the wrap top, that's the easiest thing to do because this thing takes you no time. It's opened, it's full. It's just a great look. It's really a great look. Okay, then we're going to, I always do this in kind of progressing complexities. This is the top, well actually this is the top just like it is. This is the top just like it is. It's a beautiful silk. We have some absolutely stunning silks on the site. We've had them there for a little while because they're pricey. They're pricey because they're just absolutely beautiful. But this is the pattern just as it is. The only thing I did differently is I put a little button here at the waist as opposed to putting ties. There's still a tie on the inside, but I put a button on the outside. It's a beautiful blouse. It's really, the original was an Anne Klein. I had never seen a wrap blouse with a collar. And I just love the combination of the two. You don't have to use them because I just showed you how to take it away, but it's a really nice blend together. And what it does is it gives a little more coverage for the neckline area, which I really liked. Alright, so what I did with this one, first off I made it sleeveless, which you can do or not do, but I did the tie a little bit differently, so let me just show you how I did this tie. I used some stretch lace. You could use anything, it doesn't have to be stretch. But I left a little hole in the side seam so that the tie came through here, and this tie is tied to this side, and it wraps around to the back and makes a little tie in the back. So I've seen wraps where, I'm sure you've seen them, where the tie goes through the side seam and then goes around. So I did a little sample of that just so you could see it. It's very cute, just a different way to do it. Now keep in mind that when I was doing some of these clothes, I wanted to have kind of a brown feeling. So remember last week when we did this brown border, this wrap top, who'd put a wrap top over you'd never think, gosh, I'm going to do the wrap top over the tank. But the wrap top over the tank, look at that. I mean, it just looks fabulous. Just really makes a nice combination. So I wanted you to see that together so you could really see that it's really beautiful. Okay, then oh, I know what I wanted to show you over here. With the back, this is a great fun little change that I just did on one of them. When you're using a knit or even a woven these days, because the old days we didn't allow, remember the 1949 Singer sewing book? You didn't allow for unfinished edges. That was completely not allowed. But these days it's really allowed. So the unfinished edges here are in the center back panel. So you can see that's exactly the center back panel as it goes down. And I just want you to use your imagination because you can cut and paste anywhere you want to. You can make it as modest as you want. You could make it as unmodest as you want. But where your bra strap comes along here, don't cut that right in there. But you can cut above and below. Here it's just where the slats were taken one way and another. So there's so many different things you can do with this, you guys, that it's just really a lot of fun to make that back piece up and make it a little bit different. Yeah. Okay, so it's just crossing. There's just all kinds of fun things done there. Okay, then I'm going to tell you how to make the one I have on. There's two changes. Maybe three, but not very many, okay? Alright, the back two pieces, the only thing I did to the back two pieces are add length. The front two pieces, obviously I added length as well, and if I had to pick a number, it was probably about 10 inches. Because this goes, this goes down halfway between my rear end and my knees. Alright, then I took the curve, and instead of doing the normal neckline, doesn't have a collar, I came out, I put the French curve here at the base, and I used number, gosh, I can't see that number. Hey Brett, what's that number right there? 22. Gosh, you could see that so fast, those young eyes. Okay, 22 there, and I just brought it out to where it was 10 total inches. Now keep in mind, you guys, that you can bring it out as far as you want, 10 inches past this point. Sorry, this point is, how come I can't read those numbers? What's right there? 16. It's backwards, you guys, sorry. So I took it out to 6 out here. I took it out 10 inches past center front. Or I'm sorry, not past center front, past where the pattern was already. 10 inches past. But I started the neckline just so that it'd be one long continuous swoop. Then you're going to, and it's just a design line. I mean, this is just kind of you know, there's no way. I thought about how could I possibly tell you how much I added or the line I used, you know. It's just a matter of then going from this line here down to the bottom. So the bottom two pieces, put them together when you're doing the pattern and just draw a line that goes from the neck edge down to the side seam. And as long as it's nice and smooth, you know, it will look great, because keep in mind you're going to add all this fringe to it, so it's not really going to, you know, it's not going to be that obvious. Now, the only thing I would recommend that you keep in mind is I wanted it to cover my crotch. I didn't want the cross above my crotch. So both sides are done this way. So the top crosses over the underneath is hidden away, and all I have under this is like a little t-shirt. Very easy to do. Okay, can I use St. Job's top 145 based on the sweater set? Well, that cross is much higher. That's why I didn't think of it. That the cross is much higher on that. It crosses way above the waist, but it's your call. I mean, it just depends on the look you want. But yes, you could. But you can definitely use the armhole and the sleeve. Yes, they're all the same. Sweater set, all the knits are the same sleeves and the same armholes. Okay? Alright, then I came back and then now I put a little button inside on this side because it comes up and buttons underneath. And if you want to, you can make it wider and bring it back in and have more cowl. I don't have a lot of cowl in this, but I didn't want a lot of cowl. I didn't want the cowl to overtake the fringe. But again, this is all design stuff, so it's totally up to you. What I love about it is I have the fit in the back and through the body. I have the fit of my wrap blouse, and it's beautiful. It's princess seams, front and back, and I just love the way it fits. It's just really nice. Alright, and then you just add the fringe. Oh, and I put a big button here. There's a snap underneath, but I loved one big button. It looked very rustic, and this is two-sided fabric. I have a brown pair of Frye boots, and I was really looking to kind of look hippie and rustic with this whole thing. So I made these little strips, and I did them 16 inches long. Now I had the picture, so what I was doing is I figured out how long the jacket was, and then I measured to figure out how long the fringe was, so that it was all in proportion. And these are 16 inches long. They're folded in half, and then you stick them in the hole, and then you wrap it around and you pulled it out. We showed this in Tips and Techniques 4 because it's just a great technique that's done a lot, and there you have it. You want the knot to be on top, and you can only do it two ways, either the knot's on the bottom or the knot's on the top. If it comes out the knot's on the bottom, do it the other way. Okay. Alright, and that's what makes your fringe. When you cut your fringe, you always want to make sure that the fringe is with the greatest stretch. So after I've done it, I want to pull this and pull. Give it a pull. Whenever you're pulling, hold right at the knot here so that it doesn't literally break the fabric, or if it doesn't, you know, come up here and scrunch that knot so tight. You don't want that. So just put your finger at the base and just pull those individually, and they'll have a nice, really fringy look. I don't know how else to describe that. They'll have a real nice fringy look. Okay. There's another one I want to show you. Are we okay on this one? Again, I used the with the top, the cutout pieces. Did you first sew it all together first? The top with the cutout pieces. Oh, yes, the top with the cutout pieces. Yes, I sewed it all together and then I cut. And then I actually, even after I cut and I wanted to add some pieces going other directions, I did 2 layers in the back. I did 2 layers so I could cut some way and use the top layer to do different things than the bottom layers. So you can do it both ways. There's lots of fun things you can do with that back, you guys. I want to show you this. This is the wrap top. And I love this. Now this is a little more advanced pattern work. This looks I just love this blouse on, especially with a little pair of jeans. Leggings. I did it long enough that I could wear it with just denim leggings, and I just think it's cute as can be. So I want to kind of point out to you what I did first, and then I'll show you the pattern work. So first off, I took away the neckline just like I showed you. Convex again, not concave, because I want it to cover more of my neck. There's nothing wrong again with doing it the opposite way. You're just going to show, it's going to be more open across your neck. Notice the sleeves, they're like a little butterfly sleeve. I love that because it's so conducive to the fabric to me. And then there's all these gathers. And the gathers are coming from this side, only on the top layer, and going over to the side seam. They're not on the bottom layer, they're only on the top. So, you got that? Let's look and see how we did it. I'm going to, I used my pattern like it is, but then I needed one more side, and only the one side is changed, not both sides. So this was the neck change, I already changed that, and these are the two pieces side by side. Now I saved these exactly how I did them so you could see the cuts. I made 5 cuts. Once I put these together, the cuts originate from the front and go through to pivot points. Now wherever the cuts go to is where the fullness will angle once you make the garment. So I did all the cuts right in through the waist, bust and waist, between the bust and the waist, because you want them in through here, and then you want them radiating up all through the side of the garment. So the cut was here, and then all the way up to the armhole. Cut was here underneath the armpit, cut over to the waist, cut down, and there. Now what you want to do, and the reason why you've got to put them both together, is because it's too narrow of a piece for the cutting to go from here to there. You have to take it through the second piece, or the design, to me the design is just going to be poor. It's got to go through both pieces. So when you put the two pieces together, I actually taped them together just for a section, so that when they went through I opened them up the same amount, both pieces together. You've already done your fitting, this is just styling. So add the fullness that you want. On each of those cut I added 2 inches, so that when I sewed the top I made little pleats here and I took away the 2 inches. So the fit is exactly like it was, and it will match the bottom piece, because remember I didn't do anything to the bottom piece. But yet the pleating, is that opposite over here? The pleating goes from here and then just grades through and dissipates onto the side seam. Alright, so that's a great way. And I actually saw the top first in a knit, and I decided it was beautiful in a knit, but I wanted a really soft drapey silk that would be just as pretty. Alright, if you're going to make this into a dress, how do you allow for the hips? I would just take like Vera's skirt. You were POM for September, you have Vera's skirt, just add it onto the waist, and then that's where the two connect. Just follow the front all the way down. So if you're going to make it into a dress, just take a skirt pattern that you have, align it at the waist, and follow the shape of the hip, and follow center fronts. You want to line up center fronts in the front and center backs in the back, and then you'll draw the princess seam through the middle too as well. Okay? Do you attach fringe with grommets? I did not. That'd be cute, but I didn't. I just cut. I'm using a knit. A knit doesn't fray, so I just cut a little hole. I mean a slit, not a hole. That's kind of misrepresenting. I just cut a little slit and then I tied it through the slits and pulled it. That's why I said when you pull them, you want to hold the knot to pull, or otherwise you could pull it right out of the fabric. On the bell sleeve, let me just show you this real quick. Keep asking questions, you guys. We'll get through them all. On the bell sleeve, I decided I wanted 24 inches at the bottom. So all I did was slash, 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 and add that in, and you can see that's how I made the bell sleeve. It's very cute. I really like the top, and again, I don't have it on, but man, it's so cute on, and it's only because they sent me this picture, because I was going to wear that, but I really like this too. My friend keeps asking me, what are you doing with all these new clothes? I'm wearing them. It's awesome because I keep getting rid of the stuff I'm not wearing, and I have new stuff. I love it. I just love it. And I'm going to tell you, it was yesterday, or I can't remember, but it was yesterday that I decided to make this top, and it wasn't an hour project. It was really I mean 2 hours, whatever. It's not. I sat in bed and tied the little ties on it last night, so I really like it. In making my muslin pattern, how do I sew my pin corrections when one pinned seam may cross another pinned seam? And that's okay. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter which one you sew first, as long as you restore whatever pinning you did. If horizontals are crossing verticals, nothing in this case crossed anything else, but even if it did, it doesn't matter which one you sew first, as long as they're both sewn correctly. And again, I would recommend, and we always do in fitting classes when I have ladies and I drape them and they make the changes, I have them sew it and put it back on so that I can see that the corrections were done. You know, it's communication. Pinning and sewing is really communication between one person to another. So I want to make sure that communication is done correctly. What type of paper are you using for your patterns? Well, I get this just from my pattern guide, but you know, it's available anywhere. It's just like at Office Max or Staples or whatever, just a paper pad. I mean, I have a big roll, but it's just some, I use a gridded inch square paper pad, but you can get just a paper pad and then use it like that. Those kind of, what do they call, easel pads? Something like that. How we doing? Are we having fun yet? Okay, I want to mention one thing, a couple things, business kind of things, you know? Okay, a couple things is, if you guys reply to an email, we don't get it. It goes into a big junk box. We never see it. We go in every once in a while and just throw everything away. Because what goes into that box are automatic responses, replies. Nobody goes through that box. So do not respond to an email. Do not respond to an email that's a mass email. I'm Peggy at SilhouettePatterns.com. I don't have all those mass emails coming back into my box because there's too many. So just FYI, that's a business thing. I've had people just super mad at me because I didn't respond. If you don't hear a response from me, I'm going to say in 24 hours, I'm going to give myself a day off. In 24 hours, email me again. I didn't get it, you guys. I mean, I've had women just so mad at me because they've emailed me 4 times and I don't respond. I do respond. I respond to everybody and everything, whether I like you, hate you, I don't care. I respond to everything. So if you haven't gotten an answer in a couple days, email me again and I respond. I usually respond every day. But like I said, you know, there's times where things come up and I don't get to it. But kind of give me a break and know that I'll answer the emails rather than getting mad at me. All right? The other thing, a question is, I had a lady in the Portland workshop. The Portland workshop is this Friday and Saturday. And she cannot make it. So there's one spot left in Portland. I'll put it in the email tomorrow, but just a heads up to let you know there is one spot open. Email me if you want it. I'm not going to turn it back on. I'm not going to turn Portland back on. It's sold out. Just because this one lady can't come, I told her I would try to find a replacement for her. There was one other thing of business. November 11th is next week, and it's Veterans Day. And all the time, you guys, Veterans Day, the mail slows down. So just kind of keep that in mind, that the mail may take a little longer because it's Veterans Day. And I get a lot of emails, where's my package, where's my package, oops, got my package, oops, like the day after they email me or the day they email me. Just if you'll have a little bit of patience, I promise we mail it all out when we say. We're not hiding it under our bushes or anything like that. Just hold on, okay? What other kind of material can be used for the fringe? Oh, lots. Faux leather, velvet, grosgrain, yes, anything, all right? And I thought about using a different fabric. This is that reversible brown beige. I mean, it feels like a sweatshirt. I love this thing. It's so comfortable. It's cotton. It's 100% cotton. It's really wonderful. But yes, absolutely. There's so many things I thought about. And if I hadn't been doing it last night, see, that's where I said it's nice to do things ahead of time because I might have done something else for the fringe. Not that I love it. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, use your imaginations. It's your job to see how many different kinds of fringe we can come up with. All right. All right. How do you raise the armhole? You extend the side seam up. You want to have a knit armhole to go to. So if you're using your woven, you just extend the side seam up and then redraw it to the sleeveless armhole you want or the knit armhole you want, whatever other armhole. Remember, get your armhole templates. That What's Up Your Sleeve DVD has all those templates for you. It explains them. It goes through them. You know, I really do think it'd help you. Are your workshops similar to this webinar? No. I mean, I don't know. What we do in the workshop is I'm fitting you guys. I'm not explaining it on a mannequin. I'm actually you guys bring muslins that are made up to the workshop of whatever you want to get done, and I drape you at the workshops. So depends. The 2-day format is where I drape you and then you actually make the garment. But the 2-day workshops are really, you guys are allowed to do whatever you want. Some ladies, Jill, hi Jill, she's coming from Australia for the San Diego workshop. She's just bringing muslins because once she gets them draped, then she goes home and she can sew her stuff. So everybody's format or agenda is going to be a little different. My goal is to help you achieve at your, speed, whatever you want to do. So that's the goal. You have me as your slave for 2 days. What skirt pattern did you use on the dots, tank, and skirt? 2009. Dots, tank? Is that what this is? Yeah, 2009. I just take 2009. Vera's skirt is my go-to straight skirt. So and I have the waistline marked on like my tank. So when I'm doing the tank into a dress, I just slap the skirt onto the tank dress waist and just draw it all as one. Okay? Can you show me how you would deal with a rolled shoulder? What's a rolled shoulder? I don't know what a rolled shoulder is. How do I prevent gapping at the neckline? You guys, most of the reason the neckline gaps is because the shoulder angle is incorrect. If you will fix the shoulder, a lot of that gapping goes away. But gapping at the neckline is not a problem with silhouette patterns. I've seen it very, very rarely. So I'm going to say most of the time we do what we call correcting the neckline, and that is in the pattern making process there's darting done through that neckline so that once it comes past your bust it lays flat in the neckline area. But no, there's nobody else that does that in their pattern making process. So you get a lot of problems that you guys think are yours, but they're not. They're really, I think they're a problem of the pattern. So we're kind of too late to get into that now, but we really don't have issues like that with silhouette patterns. So the goal is to help you fit our patterns, if that's fair, and in the process you get some side perks. Anyway, we are going to see you in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we're going to do what we're calling our holiday dressing, because after that we'll do December pattern of the month. We only have 2 webcasts left from the whole year, but you know what that does? That gives you lots of time in December to go back, right, and watch. Anyway, I hope you make a wrap top. These are fun and simple and easy. Get the fitting down and then make all these variations, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Happy sewing, ladies. Bye. And gentlemen, I forgot. Later. Bye.